Hey guys, it's Claire here. Now in today's video, what I want to talk to you about is how to reach the top 1% of a field that you're in, or how to become a high performer. So for me, I have done this a number of times in my life now, and I don't think it's a fluke for why I've been able to do that. So I've put together 5 key things that I think are really important for how to reach the top of your field. And I thought I would share those 5 things with you. Now, if you're not quite sure about my background and why I'm so confident in telling you that I've become a top performer in many fields, I thought I'd just let you know. So basically, when I was a child, I was a musician, a classical musician, and I reached the top of my sort of field of playing the oboe while I was a young person, at school and into university years. So, I don't want to sound full of myself or anything, but I was probably one of the better oboists in Australia at the time that I was playing, and I went over to London on a full scholarship to study over in London and those sorts of things as well. So that was sort of the first time that I had achieved sort of top performance in a field. I then did it a second time in my 30s when I was doing my PhD. Not many people in the world get a PhD. It is one of those like top 1% type things. And I definitely think that there were many of the same traits that I had when I was an oboist or when I was a musician as a child and a young person that carried over into what I used to do as part of getting my PhD. I got my PhD while I had 3 children under probably 4. I had my son who's profoundly disabled. I sat in hospital writing much of my PhD, and I got it in 3.5 years with almost no corrections required. So very fast time frame under normal conditions, but I was doing it with these enhanced situation as a mother and a mother of a child with very significant special needs. So that was sort of the second time I've done it, and now I've sort of recently in the last couple of years done it again, in that I have grown a business completely from scratch to being a multi-7-figure business. So again, not many people in the world achieve that. And once again, many of the traits, I guess, that have helped me to achieve success in business are the same things that helped me to get my PhD in that very short time frame, and also to help me to become a top sort of classical musician as well. So there's 5 things I think that underpin the way that I have achieved success multiple times in my life. And I'm not saying that I feel really awkward talking about it, because it's not like I feel like I'm like this fabulous person, or that I want to say that I'm like this super high performer and look at how wonderful I am. But I just wanted to share with you what it takes to actually reach the top of different fields. My husband says it to me quite often. I'm a fairly modest person, but he's often saying to me things about, like, it's not a fluke that you've been able to do this 3 times. So, and in other parts of my life as well, really, but they're the sort of 3 tangible things that I can share with you. So I'm going to share the 5 things that I think are super important, and hopefully you'll find those of interest. Now, if you are watching this on YouTube and you aren't yet subscribed to my channel, please consider doing that. So hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell to get future videos and be notified of future videos. If you're watching on IGTV, make sure you are following me at The Little Design Corner and at Claire Leroy, which are my 2 Instagram pages where I share different sorts of things on both of those pages. So definitely come and follow me over there. So let's now jump into the different tips that I have for you about how to become a top performer in different fields. So the first thing that I think is critical and probably the most important aspect of this are your daily habits. So I have a few examples from the different sort of things that I've done about where my daily habits played such a big role in my success. So starting back from when I was a musician, the simple thing that I can tell you about how I got to be where I got to be with music was that I just, had really strong discipline around practicing every day for 3 to 4 hours a day. So I just would get up, I would have it timetabled into my day. I used to split it up. Playing the oboe is pretty intensive on like the embouchure, you call it, where you're with the position that your mouth goes into. So you can't really play for 4 hours at a time. But yeah, I'd split it up over, a couple of hours in the morning, couple of hours in the afternoon. And I would have strict habits around what my practice sessions involved. I generally would do at least an hour of scales and arpeggios so that my technique would get really good. Boring, really boring, day in, day out. That is how I would start every single practice session. And then I'd move on to doing some technical pieces and just getting my technique better and better and better, and then moving on to practicing pieces and working through pieces and things like that normally in the afternoon session. So that was habitual. Every day the practice session was pretty much the same. I rarely would miss a session of practice because consistency is part of your daily habits, and consistency is definitely part of success. It's what you do day in, day out that gives you the results. So that's an example from the music. With my PhD, I had a different kind of daily habit that I set for myself. So for me, when I first started the PhD, I came up with this idea that if I could write about 150 to 200 words a day, then I would write the PhD in 3.5 years. I'd sort of broken down the word count, and I'd realized that if I could just have the daily ritual of writing that much, those many words each day, then I would get the PhD written. And so I had a daily habit of writing at least 150 to 200 words. And on most days, I'd write a lot more than that. So I'd write more like 1,000 words, because it's actually not very hard to write 1,000 words. So if I'd read a journal article, then I would summarize that and I'd write that up. And then that would become a little part of my PhD thesis. And I just embedded that habit day in, day out, over and over and over again. And that is what helped me to lead to just getting the PhD written in a way that was sort of manageable and broken down and bite-sized and achievable. So that was a daily habit there. And then obviously with my business, I talk more about that now. You guys have heard a lot more about that and the daily habits that I have around the success in my business. So I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day. I have the same morning routine that I go through. I have daily non-negotiables that I do in my business that are into, looking after my clients and doing my emails and all of those sorts of things. I have very healthy habits around how I manage my energy. I've stopped drinking alcohol. So I've done a lot of things that are sort of quite extreme these days for reaching success in business, but it is all about consistency of my habits and consistency of what I do day in, day out. And that honestly started back from when I was a child and studying music, and that sort of embedded consistency and that embedded just discipline of doing something day in, day out, even on the days you don't feel like it, even on the days when you can't be bothered, even on the days when you just absolutely wish you could be doing something else, even on the days when you're sick, even on the days when you have other excuses, you do it anyway, because that is how you lead to success. And so I think that absolutely is the most important thing for reaching the top of any field and for reaching success is your daily habits. But I have some other points for you as well that I think are really important as well. So number 2 is to not make excuses. So this I just see too much. So I just hear from people, I'll start my business when my kids go to school, or, I'm too old to start a business, or I'm really tired, or, I've got too much on, or like whatever the excuse might be. I am just not an excuses person. So, like almost to my detriment in many ways. Like, for example, with my training and my fitness stuff, like I often will train through injury and all of those things. And I don't recommend that you do that, but I'm just not an excuses person. So unless I'm basically dead, I'll be there at training. So I don't miss it. It goes back to my daily habits. Like I don't make excuses for missing things. And I have always been like that. So it goes back to that discipline of doing your habits day in, day out and just not making excuses for why you can't do it. I hear just way too many people, especially in the business area that I work in now, just helping people grow businesses, start businesses. People just message me in the DMs and things, and they just often have just a lot of excuses for why they can't achieve things. So I don't make excuses. If you have big goals and you want to achieve things, you have got to put the excuses to the side. There's almost nothing that should stop you from achieving things. Like I, for example, speaking of excuses, so with my PhD, When Hugo, my middle son, who's profoundly disabled, was born, I used to take my laptop in because he spent the first sort of 6 to 9 months of his life in hospital, and he's been in and out of hospital for the whole time he's been alive. And every time he goes in, I'm there sitting, working. And he would be asleep and stuff, so it wasn't like I could be doing anything except just being by his bedside. And doctors would come past and they'd say, "What are you doing on your computer all the time?" I'd say, "Oh, I'm just writing my PhD." And some of them would be like, "Don't you think maybe you should put that to the side for the moment, while he's so little and sick and things?" And I would just say to them, "No, I am like nearly on top of this PhD. I'm determined to get it finished. And he's asleep and I can't do anything for him except to just be here and sort of be with him. I may as well be trying to do something that helps me to progress myself as well at the same time." So no excuses. There's very few things that you could say to me that are an excuse for why you can't get things done, because I could probably turn around and say to you, "I've been there, done that." Like, not to say that I'm a great, like so good that I don't have excuses, but just if you are determined to succeed, you've got to push past excuses and move past them because they're just not going to serve you for where you want to go. Point number 3 is that you do have to make sacrifice. So I get up early in the mornings at the moment because I am determined to succeed. So I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's a sacrifice. It means I don't stay up late watching Netflix. It's a sacrifice. So when I was a musician and studying, like some of my friends, they'd go out to the beach on a Saturday afternoon, but I had to practice, or I chose to practice, I should say. And that's a sacrifice. So I chose that for myself because I wanted to be successful and I had goals that I wanted to achieve. With the PhD, it's the same sort of thing. Like, there would be times when my kids were really little and they'd be sleeping in their lunch hour, and that was the only time in the day that I would get some time to write my PhD. And so instead of going and having a nap while they were napping, that was the time that I would spend my time working. So if you are going to succeed, you do have to make sacrifices and work harder than others. It's just as simple as that. The next point is the 10,000 hour rule. So this is being talked about in Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, which is an absolutely fantastic book. So he sort of made this the famous, can you see that? I'm not sure. Anyway, he made that famous line. Oh, it's not working at all. Anyway, it's Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers. And he talks about the 10,000 hour rule, which is basically you've got to spend 10,000 hours on a task in order to achieve 1% success in that field. And so, practicing 3 to 4 hours a day, your 10,000 hours comes up at about, probably, I need to do the calculation, but maybe 9 years or something like that. And that's how long it took me to actually achieve the success that I wanted to achieve as a musician. With my PhD, if you broke down the number of hours that I spent over those 3.5 years to get my PhD, I bet you'd find that I hit the 10,000 hours. And then again, with my business that I've been running for 10 years now, I have more than put in my 10,000 hours, which is why I'm achieving those levels of success. So don't think that stuff is just going to happen without you putting in that work, especially to reach those really top levels of performance. It does take time, and you have to be patient with how long it's going to take you to actually get there. So you have to put in the work, and it does take time, and that 10,000 hour rule is 100% correct. And then my final point is you have to be ambitious. So the thing is, you may not have the same level of ambition as I do. I am very, very, very ambitious. I have a lot of really big goals that a lot of people don't have. People sometimes say to me, "Why don't you just not worry or just back off or whatever?" But I am just super, super ambitious. I have a very strong drive to succeed, which is why I have achieved things across a number of different areas in my life now. And I always am doing the very best that I can at the thing that I'm doing at that particular moment in time. So when I was a musician, I had no idea where my life was heading. Then I ended up doing a PhD it was in business. And so, how do you even end up there? And where was it all going? I had no idea. But what I did was worked really hard at what I was doing at the time, because I knew that by getting my PhD, having that title, that somewhere down the track, something else fantastic would happen. And that's what happened. And now I've got my business, and it sort of has all morphed in and become something that's all making sense. But You have to have that drive to succeed if you are going to achieve the very top of any field. So if you aren't super ambitious, don't be hard on yourself, because not everyone has that drive to succeed and that ambition, and that's absolutely okay. So don't ever feel bad that other people are trying to achieve more than you are, because maybe you just aren't that kind of person or just don't want to have that level of ambition. So those are the 5 things that I wanted to share with you today. The 5 things that I think is how you achieve the top of any field. So I hope those were interesting for you today. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye for now.